social, economic, and political demand for water. There are attempts to start sampling. Sometimes you find the technicians go and they try to drill here, drill there, drill various places in order to see availability of that water. And in most cases, it fails. And if it fails, for example, I will talk about Karamoja, you find because of the political pressure and the community pressure, boreholes were drilled. Your question is related to the need of planning and mapping. Mapping what? The demand for water. And then the availability of water in terms of quantity and quality.
Areas, we are in the drinks business, so we believe that if there is a role in promoting positive drinking. What does that mean? That means that we believe there is a role in a balanced lifestyle where our products can play. But that means that we need to prevent abuse. We need to ensure that what we do continues to empower the communities that we work in, working with partners across, because we work with a lot, 35,000 plus farmers, which is bringing revenue to the economies right down to the grassroots. So it really resonates, for instance, with the NDP3, it resonates with the parish development model. We work with partners like NARO, we work with partners like OWC, agronomists, because we believe that empowering the individuals also makes them better participants in the environment. And so with that sort of integrated strategy, we believe that as we are pursuing our commercial goals, we are also ensuring that we are looking at the well-being of the people that we work with, we are integrating them in our operations, and also being a responsible corporate citizen.
I'm the founding manager, director, and patron of the Grow Foundation. We are a social impact organization dedicated to ending poverty using climate finance. And that's the very, very first recognition before I go into depth. It's not a grant. Carbon markets are its own business that generate revenues from buyers. It's a traditional buyer and seller market. And that gives us money independent from charity, independent from grants, independent from international loans, to then fund food security, water security, education, and skills. And those skills lead to job security. Our goal is that communities at grassroots level get the prosperity to be independent of charity. We don't want them to wait for the next grant. We want to enable them and empower them to become truly independent. That's how we use carbon credits, carbon certificates, and the carbon market. It's a tool to create impact. And the goal is, like I said, to end poverty. So let's go to the first slide. That's an applause already. Thank you so much. And I'm looking on it one niche of the carbon market. I'm looking at carbon certification to achieve net zero in the market. At the highest level, all you really need to know is that the United Nations and all member states agreed to measure the carbon emissions that go into the air. Carbon emissions are basically like, we produce carbon. I breathe oxygen in, I breathe carbon out. So when you drive a car, when you fly a plane, when a truck transports something, when you take oil into the ground, when you produce plastics, when you produce energy, electricity, make cement, every industrial process creates carbon emissions that go into the air. This is not even a matter of climate change. It is a matter of just pollution. And the same way you produce rubbish and waste at home, and then you bring it into waste bin, and you pay for someone to collect that waste, companies and countries now need to pay to remove the carbon from the air that they created. It's as simple as that. I created waste, and now I have to pay for it to be taken out. That is the entire carbon market. Now what we do, and what anybody in carbon development does, is prove that they took those carbon emissions out of the air. And that's what this quick introduction is about. How do you prove that you took carbon emissions out of the air permanently? That's the key word. So whenever you think of carbon markets, it's a business like anything else. There's suppliers, brokers, manufacturers, supply chain compliance, materials, contracts you need to create. Like in any other business, our business is about proving that we took CO2 out of the air permanently. Arrow up, arrow down, yeah? 1 + 1 = 0, and now economies become net zero, carbon neutral. The next is biodiversity. We don't plant trees, we grow forests. That too is a mindset change, because a tree will die, but if you plant a forest and natural biodiversity, that forest becomes self-sustaining. A forest planting right and then protected could exist in 1,000 years. So while the tree dies, it replaces itself. If I plant one tree and then cut it down, all the carbon that it contains is thrown out again. Now, I've planted a forest. This tree, as it dies, is already replaced by another tree. So it's not about planting trees, it's about growing forests with natural biodiversity. The next level is permanence. Exactly what I said. We want forest cover worldwide to come back. It's not about creating a banana plantation or a mango plantation. It's about bringing forests back. Maybe not everywhere, but we have to do our best. We certainly have to reduce the scale at which we're losing natural forests. Because one day we won't have forests at all. And that would be bad. Because monkeys need a place to play, and I like looking at birds. Okay, so permanence is not just about the biodiversity to keep it alive, it's about contracts. It's about monitoring, it's about reporting. Because this is why, for example, we focus only on planting in forest reserves, nature reserves, wildlife reserves. We never plant on private land. Because even if I myself plant a forest on my land, and believe me, I believe in this, I know how to make money with this, but if I plant that forest and one day I pass away, in 150 years, I don't know if my children will keep that forest alive. I don't know if they'll maintain it. Even if they do, there's no guarantee that their grandchildren will. That forest is not guaranteed permanence. It is only guaranteed permanence if it is, like I said, a forest reserve, a nature reserve, a wildlife reserve, protected by government because it's on public or institutional land, or we also work with heritage foundations, a kingdom, a church. And even there, we don't have an agreement with the king. We have an agreement with the throne. Because the king might die, but long live the king. The throne will be there in 1,000 years. That is permanence. And I've already said about the next of transparency. We have to document it, we have to report it, it has to be validated, it has to be documented, we have to measure the trees. We know every single tree species we are planting. We know their growth rates. We know their carbon sequestration model. We know through the impact, which is the final step, the communities living around the forest and what activities we do to make sure they don't cut it down. Because remember, for us, it's about ending poverty. Deforestation is a symptom of industrialization, cutting it down for pure profit, and poverty, cutting it down because of a need. So by ending poverty and creating alternative sources, we're helping them. So we are restoring forests on one side, but with the communities, we're also planting the fruit trees they're looking for. Because they need food security, they need water security, they need educational skills, they need job security, they need a future. So for us, I don't talk about environmental protection with communities on the ground, with grassroots communities. I say help us plant this forest and we'll have money for the school that your child goes to. We'll have money for the well and the water sanitation so that you have clean drinking water. We can provide skill centers for you to have training and qualifications, and we can give funding so that you have a business to make money. And now we've ended poverty and protected the environment. That's the impact we create. And this is monitored through a standard. Next slide, please. He's making sure that these things are happening. Because, again, and that's the mindset change I need to leave everybody know. The carbon markets are not a grant. We are not a charity. We're a social impact organization here to help you, to help Uganda, to make money from the international market to create impact that they want. Grants are tied to conditions. Grants are often limited to capacity building. Grants are often just debt or loans coming from international markets. But even if they're helpful, the people on the land, the farmers, they know how to farm. They've been farming for thousands of years. They know how to farm efficiently. How do they scale to make more money? To stop being subsistence farmers? The youth, there's so much talent here in this country. There's so much talent. There's so much opportunity. There's so many ideas. There's so much creativity. But how can I turn that creativity into a business, into a livelihood to change and transform their lives? Transformation through public-private community partnerships. So again, the big challenge and mindset changes here that most of the Ugandan economy is either subsistence farming or it heavily relies on grants. Either it's just Ugandans selling to a different Ugandan, so it's a small local business. This farm could be, for example, we do loans for the car sector. Yeah, how are they at the end of the day? At the end of it's a business. At the end of the day, how can you make it attractive? So they were looking at a car company, and they can offer a net zero loan when they're selling the car. And the conversation is, but I know you're more eco-friendly and you're thinking of a Tesla. Listen, we can give you an eco-friendly loan that costs 1.5% more. However, it will have offset all the carbon emissions of this car. It's a 3-year leasing. Yeah. So through this loan, you will have offset the carbon emissions of this BMW on your 3-year leasing contract. And now it's more economically, environmentally friendly than an electric vehicle from Tesla. Because let me tell you about batteries. And you know what? If you sign today, sir, we'll give you that 1.5% as a discount. You get it for free. So it becomes a sales tool suddenly, and it becomes a habit. Oh, you want to build a house, and you're already investing into better materials for everything. But there's a lot of carbon footprint in your house. So through the loan itself, you can help businesses that need to be more eco-friendly to achieve their net zero target. That the loan itself contains the offsetting of that project.
Yeah.
So it's understanding the carbon footprint of the user, and that's that. So banks will have this as a standard feature.
Of sorts, you've just talked about incentive. Because I'll tell you, you go to a company and say, we are monitoring your carbon footprint, you need to reduce it. Then say, okay,
Why?
Why? You're going to install all these gadgets, they're going to do what? You want to monitor everything, you are going to bring in URI. So I think, much as we're changing mindset, but we also need to work with the policymakers to drive some kind of an incentive. If you did this, reduce the carbon footprint, then your taxes will reduce, something like that. Or even banks would say, if you're doing this, then maybe we will give you an interest rate that is lower than when you are not doing this. Something like that.
ICT innovation and services. So tourism can go into the services. So it means that the direction in the National Development Plan 4 is that we must understand how is the PPCP we talked about, the public-private community partnerships. How is it going to be realized? So through the tools that we are trying to develop here with certain young individuals, and for all of you are wondering, Grow is full of young people. Some are saying, I don't know who this is, I don't know who that is. It's just a great initiative. It's a safe space for young people who have great opportunities and great knowledge to come in and change the financial sector or change all the other sectors. What are we talking about? We're talking about climate finance. Now, there are 2 or 3 means of implementation in this aspect. There is one that without the required financing, the architecture and capacity may not be possible to achieve certain goals. Of course, as a country, like I said earlier, we have a national development plan, but we also have an SDG framework, Sustainable Development Goals framework. So these are all agendas and goals that we're going towards sustainable development. But however, we have now the National Development Plan 4 that is coming in from 2025 to 2030. So you can see how these are being interlinked at a certain point. What do we exactly need, or what are we working with, or which agencies are we working with? We're working closely with the National SDG Secretariat, that is under the Office of the Prime Minister, that coordinates the entire framework. So we're also working closely with the Ministry of Finance under the Climate Finance Unit, where they're mobilizing both private sector and public sector finances to finance